Hello world, Kyle here with NimbleNoggin.io, and I just want to check a little bit of logic that I have going on in the text field view controller about animating that waiting label at the top. So you can see here in the code I've set a few breakpoints at different parts of the method of animate label. We have one when the method is called, just so I know that it's been called at every interval of the timer, and the timer is set with an interval of 1 second. I have another breakpoint in a double nested if statement, just so I can see if there's maybe a rare situation that this line of code is run, so that when we do hit this breakpoint, I know that we have hit that rare situation that is passed through two if statements, just so we know maybe what that situation is. And then I have another breakpoint near the bottom of the method that is still within this loop here, but that does not fit into this first if statement. So let's just open this view controller and see when we hit our first breakpoint. And right away, we hit this first one. So we know that the timer down here has passed its interval of 1 second and has called this selector on self, animate label. So this method has been hit. Now, how do we continue what's going on here? Well, with this continue program execution play pause button down here. So I'll press that, and 1 second later, we're back at the same exact breakpoint. We didn't hit either of our other two breakpoints. So maybe I'm kind of wondering why at this point. Is there anything we can do other than just continue through the code this time? And there actually is. These next three buttons after the continue program execution play pause button are exactly that. And those buttons are called step over, step into, and step out of. And the usefulness of these is probably best shown just walking through it with you. So I'm going to press the step over button, and do we know what's going to happen? No, but I'm going to press it, and it looks like we've just advanced to the next line. We've run the code that creating that new var of I equals 0, and we can see down here that in this debug area of the current scope at our breakpoint that we're paused at, we can see that there is a new int created that is set to 0. So let's just step over a few more times and see if maybe we will hit this breakpoint this time. Since the situation is different, the text of the waiting label should be equal to the second element in the array that says waiting with 1 period. So let's continue stepping over to see what happens. We've arrived into this loop here, into this for loop, and are about to check if self.statusLabel text equals the current waiting string. And we know that the status label's text is waiting with 1 period, and the current waiting string in this for loop is waiting with no period. So let's step over, and it looks like we do hit this last breakpoint this time, and all we're doing is incrementing I by 1. And if we step over, we're not just going to step out of the method, we're going to actually continue back up to the top of this for loop. So we're at the top of the for loop, we advance one more time, and the new waiting string is actually the second element in this waiting strings array, which is waiting with 1 period, and we do know that that's what the text equals in the status label at the top in the view controller. So we're at this if statement again, and as I step over, we should actually be able to go into this if statement, because the status label's text does equal the current waiting string. So let's step over, we're into that if statement. And what we're doing here is we're incrementing I yet again. So now I should equal 2 after that line is hit. We're at another if statement that we're not going to pass because it's asking if I equals waiting strings count, which the current count of the waiting strings array is 4, so we're not there yet. We step over, we continue past that if statement. We're setting the status label's text to the waiting strings element at I, and I is now 2. So 0, 1, 2. The waiting string after this line is run should now have 2 periods in it. So we'll step over, and now we're at this break. So we're going to break out of the loop, and now at the end of the method, and we can continue program execution so that the app will run again. And we saw for just a second that the waiting string does now have 2 periods. So I'm just going to press play, and we should hit this. I'm just going to continue program execution, and we should hit this third breakpoint twice, and then as you see as we step over, continuing through this loop progression, we're going to set the status label's text to the final element in this waiting array. So we are not going to hit this middle breakpoint yet because I will not equal 4 yet. It's currently equal to 3. So we'll continue through that. We'll break out of the method and continue program execution, and waiting should have 3 periods now, which it does. So we're back. We've hit this method again. Let's continue program execution 3 times because we are going to hit this third breakpoint 3 times. So I'm just going to do that. And now we can see that we have finally hit this middle breakpoint, and that's because in the loop of this array we are on this waiting string with 3 periods, and that is equal to the current status label's text. And now we have incremented I so that it is up to 4, and I does in fact equal the waiting strings array.count, which is also 4. So we're going to reset I to 0, and then continuing past that we'll break out of that if statement and then set the status label's text to the first element in the waiting string, which is an index of 0. So it'll just say waiting with no periods. We're going to continue program execution, open the app, and we can see that there's no periods. Fabulous. Thanks for watching.